Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's executive. Nice to see so many of you here this evening. Just a couple of words of housekeeping. The camera is on the executive, so it won't be picking up you, but it will actually be picking up anything we say. So just be aware of that. Shahid is sitting for Pauline Hellier-Simons this evening, so he will deal with any issues regarding children's services, but he won't actually be able to vote on it. Okay, so apologies for absence.
Chairman, I've got a picture from Councillor Hellier-Simons.
Okay, that's great. Minutes of the previous meeting, pages 7 to 12. Any comments, any omissions, anything that needs to be corrected? Everybody happy? Okay, can I get a show of hands? Yeah, good. Okay, declarations of interest. I need to declare an interest to say that I'm a non-executive and non-remunerated member of the holding company.
I likewise am a director of non-remunerated director of the working holding company.
I'm a non-executive director of Optalis Holdings.
I'm chairman of Optus Holdings.
Okay, thank you very much. Public question time. Mr. Fishwick, if you'd like to ask your question, you can either ask the question in its totality or ask the question standing in my name, whichever you would prefer.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so Spectrum. Thank you very much. My question is for the Executive Member for Environment, Leisure and Libraries, and it's related to DEFRA Air Quality Grant 2018 to 2019. Local Authorities England could apply for the Air Quality Grant Scheme 2018 to 2019 with applications needed to be submitted to DEFRA by midday on the 30th of November 2018. In particular, DEFRA were looking for applications on projects designed to support local authorities to develop and or implement measures to improve local air quality, innovation through trialling of low-cost sensors. The grant would be competitive and at least £3 million has been set aside to English local authorities that have one or more air quality management areas. As Woking Borough Council has 3 designated air quality management areas within its area, did it make a bid for this funding, and if so, what for? Okay.
Councillor Housel?
Thank you very much for the question. Yes, we did make an application to DEFRA for the grant, and this bid was focused on improving air quality through the Council's My Journey programme, which aims to promote active and alternative sustainable transport to reduce vehicle emissions, which are the biggest cause of our air quality problems. The grant would enable the Council to fund an eco-travel officer to target at least 6 schools or surrounding the designated air quality management areas. The additional work would be delivered in conjunction with the existing schools and road safety packages to deliver skills training and address wider barriers to active travel. We expect to hear the outcome of the bid in February 2019.
Do you have a supplementary?
I do, thank you. It's pleasing news that the Borough Council has made a bid for air quality grant funding. However, it's disappointing that Woking Borough has failed to submit a bid until now for this funding, because according to DEFRA records, since Woking Borough Council first declared an air quality management area on the 28th of September 2001, it hasn't made any bids at all for this funding, and previous governments have had this funding available. Air pollution in the UK kills approximately 45,000 people prematurely every year. And my question to the executive member related to air quality on the 28th of September 2018 provided a negative answer, as the Borough Council had failed to respond to the government's consultation on the future of planned UK clean air strategy.
I'm really sorry, your supplementary should be a question, not a statement.
It is coming to that now. A positive response this time is a small step forward, but this council is failing to tackle poor air quality for its residents and therefore the health of its population.
Still sounds like a
What
statement.
assurances can the executive member provide that reassures its residents of the borough that the council will take poor air quality seriously and take proper action on removing its current 3 AQMAs and to prevent any new AQMAs being declared? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Fishbeard. It's a very detailed question. Can I come back to you in writing? Thank you.
You can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Beth, nice to see you again. Can I ask your question?
Thank you. I thought I'd choose up my non-council address.
Very nice it is too.
Absolutely. And very important.
Yeah, that's the key thing.
Thank you for all of you. I don't propose to read my question out, Shahid, but I would like to say for me there are 2 serious elements. One being the SEND education and the other, as a Woodley resident, being the SULD.
Thank you, Beth, for asking the question. As you know, I'm a Woodley resident myself, and I'm fully aware of the issues and the concerns which this raises. So I accept that the decision to expand the Addington School is a sensitive one to local residents. The office's report sets out the educational argument is persuasive in our view. Since expanding, this will enable the education of 50 additional children in the borough. The office's report on the proposed expansion was not a development control report, but did refer to the planning application which will need to be resolved through the normal decision-making process for all development control. I know the lead member of this area is well briefed on issues, as are the relevant planning officers who will need to advise on the proposed works in the normal way before the planning committee decides. We are about to start a wide consultation on new SEND strategy, which I hope all members will encourage a strong response. A key benefit of that proposed strategy will be to try and increase the provision of SEND children within the borough wherever we can.
Do you have a supplementary?
I do, thank you. I think you'll find it's more than 1 or 2 residents, Shahid. It's a considerable number of residents of both Woodley and Whitegates Ward that live back onto that SULD. I'm delighted, it makes my heart sing to see that you're looking at a wider proposition for SEND pupils. As Chairman of Governors of 2 of our local primary schools, we see more and more children with special needs, some which shouldn't be in mainstream education. We can't handle them, but there's nowhere for them to go. My question is, please will you, as this is an absolutely non-political area, work together across all parties to make sure that we make the best provision in our borough for the children, not only in our borough if we've got spare places for children from elsewhere. Oh, that's my phone.
Can I give you the assurance? Yes, we will.
Thank you. So I trust you'll be in touch with Lindsay about some cross-party working.
Well, there's
Yeah.
obviously a consultation on SEND. I would expect a wider representation,
I'd like
also
more.
response
Yeah.
from the white members.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Beth. Jenny, nice to see you. Would you like to ask your question?
Thank you. Well, I think I will read my question out, please. And it was debatable as to who it should go to, but it's gone to Children's Services. The building of Addington School and car park on a much-loved local green space, part of a site of urban landscape value, was highly controversial at the time. In itself, the decision involving reducing the boundary of the SULV led directly to further reductions in it, with the government inspector allowing an intrusive development to the rear of Hitts Lane, girls' soccer with its pavilion, parking and intrusive bright lights, and the loss of a playing field to development on the other side of Woodlands Avenue. Given the sensitivity of the location, it amazes me that you do not plan for the future and design for extra capacity to build into the original school building, which was quoted by Heatherthwaites in Get Ready as being fit for the 21st century, so that the current situation could have been avoided. As you did not do this, how can you justify your action of putting yet another blot on the landscape by carving yet another chunk out of the SULB to facilitate your cheap and ill thought out choice of option B?
Thank you, Jenny, for the question. In part of the question, the response I've already given in the previous question, but just to correct you, the existing proposed expansion of the Addington School, provided the executive gives a go-ahead, within the same curtilage of the Addington School, which is currently at the moment. So that is, if you look at the plan, that's what it is. It's not taking any additional land from SULA. It's actually the same within the boundary. So if you look at the plan. So it's not.
Well, I've looked at the plans and that's not what I've...
Also, obviously 10 years ago there was a demand, but now obviously demand has been increasing by 5% since 2015, and the demand is increasing. So therefore we have to make provisions and for the future.
I suggest then, Jenny, that perhaps you have a look at the plans again and then contact Shahid to raise
I've
any
already
issues.
looked at the plans and I looked at the layout, and it seemed to me that the part of the SULB was being taken to put car parking on. It's an area where there have been trees being grown, which have been surviving for quite a long time. Maybe I'm incorrect, I don't know. It's quite a long report to read. However, can I read my supplementary, please? So, I did have two. I'm not quite sure which one to read now, but I think I'll go with the one I fancy better. So, are you saying that we have to watch our green space being further eaten away because our council did not forward plan, because it sold off the old Addington site, and because it isn't prepared to build a satellite school anywhere else because it's too difficult to manage? And because of this incompetency, we, the residents, who rely on a bit of open green space for our pleasure, enjoyment and sanity, have to watch you, this was addressed at Pauline, who live in leafy Woking without, systematically destroy it.
Well, I can also include in the report. It says as well that the extension is within the curtilage of the Addington School. So again, I'll say there's no additional land being taken from that. Again, I've spoken to the relevant people, and that is my understanding. Again, we can discuss that, but there's no intention to take any further. But obviously, think of the benefits as well this is going to bring to the Addington School. Additionally, 50 children space we're creating. It will have a positive impact on the children. It will have positive impact on the family as well, and also it will hugely beneficial for the taxpayer as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bates? No? Okay, then we'll give you a written answer. And I think now we move on to member questions. So, Lindsay, if you'd like to ask your question, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. In view of the recent Court of Appeal case where Woking Borough Council refused the leave to appeal the High Court decision made in 2018 against the council in relation to Hare Hat Sheeplands, the reason given was there were no grounds to accept the appeal. Of particular concern is the way the council pursued this case, as reference to abuse of process by the council has been made by the judges. We are also concerned about the significant costs that have been incurred and the potential future costs on the council. Will the leader of the council agree to an independent external inquiry into how this situation has occurred?
Right, for consistency, Councillor Wiggs is going to deal with that because he's dealing with all the questions related to
Are you sure?
Positive.
I'm sure I'm answering it. All right, thank you for your question, Lindsay. WBC pursued this case in line with both internal and external legal advice, and for the sound reason that the operator of Hare Hat Sheeplands had repeatedly flouted planning law for a significant period. We will not apologise for being vigilant in protecting the integrity of planning policies, and in particular those applying to the Greenbelt, which, as you're very aware, is the most highly protected land in the borough. It is worth pointing out that due to the council's perseverance, all of the illegal developments were eventually removed from the site, and a High Court injunction remains in place to ensure they're not rebuilt. You may not be aware, but we have successfully adopted this approach in other cases elsewhere in the borough involving blatant and persistent breaches of planning. And in these cases, criminal convictions resulted. The court has ruled differently in this particular case, so we will always review future cases such as this, but are satisfied that an independent external inquiry is not required on this occasion.
Do you have a supplementary?
Well, the reason why I was looking at Simon's reply, because Simon was the person, the exec member, who I believe approved to go to the appeal and the costs that are involved, so I'm just a bit wary of that. I think we have a reputational issue here. I have not got a problem with the council pursuing people who have abused the planning process, and I've told Sheepland people about that. But when 4 High Court judges have indicated that, quote, there was abuse of process, and that the 3 had given the indication that there was no reason to appeal, this does hit the reputation of the planning department and how the issues has happened, and I think we do need to learn from this, and that is why I've asked for that. So if you're not going to do an external investigation, I do think there does need to be somebody who's not been involved with this within the council to look at this. So I will ask a supplementary question is, will you do an internal inquiry involving people and officers who were not involved in this area? Because it is grave concern that we could have significant costs in 6, potentially 7 figures, I don't know, because we don't know what the situation will be, at a time when we are quite heavily financially strapped. And I hope to understand whether that would be pursued.
Right. I think you raise a valid point. I think you're aware that the original case started in 2011, and the council first sought the High Court injunction some considerable time prior to me becoming the executive member. I inherited the case, and when I reviewed the case, the officer's recommendation and that of our QC was that we should pursue the case to the appeal court because of the risk otherwise of indicating that it would be if you like, a green light to people to continue to flout planning law with the knowledge that there's no specific penalty at the end of that. I'm happy to meet with you and the head of planning at the council to consider what was suggested and see if we can learn something from it. But my current position remains that if we faced a similar situation where there's repeated and blatant abuse of planning, I would be very keen that we pursue that as we have done successfully in a number of other cases. We believe this court case, recent court case, was inconsistent with previous decisions that we've received that have supported our course of action.
Well, I think you might be aware now that we now have case law that pursuing through the planning process the proceeds of crime is now not a way to proceed, and I think that's my understanding, because one of the judges, I believe, is the Lord Chief Justice. So these are very senior.
You're incorrect. One of the judges is not the Lord Chief Justice. She may become. It is rumoured she may become the Lord Chief Justice. But I will also tell you that I understand that this decision has had significant repercussions with local authorities,
yes,
because to some extent it can reduce the ways they have of controlling inappropriate planning.
And that's
in
the point
all areas,
raised.
I think most councils do want to have appropriate control of planning, and in my experience, residents want appropriate control of planning and cannot be selective that it's only applied to people they don't like as opposed to operations that they do like.
That's the reason for my question, because it's case law.
Yep.
Okay, Lindsay, thank you for your question. Angus, would you like to come and ask your question?
I asked the question in my name.
Thank you, Angus, for asking the question. Yes, I'm aware of the planning issues referred to in the report, and we have already been in touch with the planning officers and the relevant lead member on this issue. Planning officers are progressing the issues raised at present. So So that is being addressed.
I understand that we go through planning process, but from my past involvement in the overall site there, I'm aware of existing parking and safety issues there, which have been, the council has been aware of, but hasn't managed to fully address. So if my supplementary sort of goes on from that, if the capacity of Addington is increased, is it intended the school will continue to help access and safety by allowing parking within their site at times when other users of that access road off Woodlands Avenue have large numbers of cars to park for events, etc., and other Addington pupils, of course, when they're not on site?
Again, you're probably referring to in your question as well, that the road which leads into Addington School. Obviously, at the moment, as we know, there's a number of schools which follow that route. We have also leisure centre coming up as well. That will increase even more pressure on that road. So at the moment, that is being looked at and will be looked at as part of the planning application, and also part of the wider thing as well regarding with Addington School as well, the parking.
If I could just make a very quick comment on that. It's not the planning, it's the accommodation that Addington have made in the last 2 or 3 years and fought for, that they did assist that situation by allowing on Addington's land parking when the school was not in operation. I'll leave a thought.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Clive, would you like to ask your question?
Thank you very much. My question is for Philip. In the Lessons Learned report put before the Community and Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee, it was confirmed that the Marketplace project had cost 4.2 million and was funded by Section 106 funding. The final project cost was said to be within 5% of the initial budget. However, at the Woking Borough Council Executive on the 24th of September 2015, funding to a maximum of 1.5 million was agreed. An identical amount would come from Wokingham Town Council. This means the original project was expected to cost 3 million, not 4.2 million, which means the overspend is considerably more than 5%. Is that correct?
The simple answer is no, but I'll give you a slightly longer one if you wish, Clive. The executive meeting referenced within the question for September 2015 was around 18 months before the final design for the Marketplace scheme had been produced. So this then enabled a contractor to generate a cost estimate. During a later executive meeting held during April 2017, the updated cost of 4.2 million, which included the contingency, was presented and agreed. The Town Council, that's Wokingham Town Council, also agreed this figure and its 50-50 share with this council at its Town Council meeting, also held during April 2017.
Do you have a supplementary?
Yes. You've just given me some detail of subsequent meetings to the 24th of September 2015, which came up with high figures. But still, the original figure back on the 24th of September amounted to 3 million. So that must be the original budget, must it?
Well, no, as I've described, that was the original review that was placed, but without the design having been completed. So that could not be the fixed figure. That's why it was reviewed once the design had come through and reassessed at 4.2 million.
Okay, great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chris Smith, would you like to come and ask your question, please?
I'd like to ask a question standing in my name.
Thank you.
That was obviously a question.
Thank you, Chris. Chris is asking about resurfacing of Rosemary Avenue in Earling, which is in a particularly shocking state. I can certainly verify that. We're quite fortunate in the Department of Transport has awarded Highways Authority with additional government money recently. So we have a one-off grant of just under 1.2 million, which has been given to us to help us deal with some of the terrible state that the roads are in. We do not have anywhere near enough of money as a council to maintain the roads as well as we would like. We need to keep them safe, but we don't have enough funds as the lowest funded authority, or more or less the lowest funded authority, to actually do what we would like to do on roads. Every 2 years, Highways does an automated check of all the roads. They have a laser that reads the road surface, and they also scrub them to make sure that they're not slippery or dangerous. And they have a map of the borough which has all the roads in priority order. I'm pleased to say that Rosemary Avenue is one of the roads that is in a particularly bad state and is showing up as red on that. So there is a plan to put Rosemary Avenue as one of the roads in the programme of extraordinary works to resurface during 1920. Although I would add a word of caution in respect to the timing, as works are dependent on there being no other activities in the vicinity. So if somebody has a water leak or something, we have to move roadworks around the place. And this is to ensure that roadworks are coordinated and we don't end up with people stuck down the end of a road unable to get out completely. So the good news is, yes, Rosemary will be done. The good news is that some other roads in the borough will be done, and they will be done on strict priority order.
Thank you. That is very good news. You made reference to an extra kind of 1.2 million from the government. As extra money like that is found or identified or granted, or just comes out of the normal budgeting process, will you be, as a member for Hillside as well, making sure that Early is getting its fair share?
I will make sure Early gets its fair share, but as I say, the roads are done on priority order based on scientific assessment of all the roads. So I have to make sure the whole borough is done in the order that it should be done based on the road condition. But yes, I'll make sure it's done fairly.
Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you very much. Gary Kell, would you like to ask your question?
I'd like to thank the two executive members last night who attended the forum on Henry Street. It was good to see them. And they're welcome there any time they like. I'd like to ask a question standing in my name.
Thank you, Gary, for your question. Quite a complicated answer to this, really, but yes, we are on it. The council has an ongoing mechanism for reviewing its land holdings, declaring asset surplus and finding potential alternative uses through its asset review programme board, which I'm part of. When a surplus site is identified, we consider whether the principal development is supported by the core strategy, which you would know quite well. The core strategy local plan, for example, because they are within our towns and villages where development is planned or the site is already developed. Where development is supported in principle, we progress the project and submit the planning application. There is no need to promote such sites into the local plan update process. We can simply get on with it. This has been the case with most of the sites we have developed for affordable housing, which of course you should also know, for example, Foster's and Phoenix Avenue. Where the principal development is not supported by the core strategy local plan, for example, because it's outside where development is planned, we carefully consider whether development can be justified as an exception now, or whether the land should be promoted into the local plan update. The sites and uses promoted into the local plan update process are those that the council has identified as the most suitable options to date that require consideration via this route. That is not to say that other sites could not be put forward in the future. A map of all the council's land holdings has been made available at all local plan update consultations, as you may have seen last night, being held around the borough, and residents and indeed our housing companies are able to suggest further sites for development should they so wish.
Do you have a supplementary?
I found at the forum that some of the elements of the presentation, for example, crematorium and Barkham, were not on the plans, were not discussed with residents. It's difficult to understand why the council wants to use its own land to support private developers rather than allowing its own limited companies the opportunity to develop affordable housing on its own land. In line with my question, the LPU document is a reference to a deal with the neighbouring council which allows for the removal of small sites in one size-fits-all policy, which I find very strange. My question therefore is this. Is the one-size-fits-all policy acceptable when there was an opportunity for a limited company to be able to evolve right and proper?
I can confirm that they're definitely doing that.
Okay, Gary, thank you very much. Andy Coyle, would you like to go and ask your question, please?
Thank you very much. Just in case people don't see the context, it's related to agenda item 82, recommendation 4. So obviously technology is a critical success factor for Optalis and for many organisations. Is the technology solution being looked at a solution just for current operations of Optalis, or does it include options for widening the scope of Optalis services?
Both. So yes, it does relate to some issues currently that have need, but it is also to implement our long-term view for widening the service base and widening the customer base of the company. So it will address both issues.
Do you have a supplementary?
I do. And does that include taking over services which are currently provided in-house by officers of the Borough Council?
It could do.
Okay, thank you very much to all the questioners. Now we move on to the substantive part of the evening. Page 13, agenda item 81, officer response to ground maintenance. But if I understand as Chairman of Open Discussion, you want to come and say a few words of introduction?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm pleased to present the report and recommendations of the Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee on the ground maintenance service. And the forward to the report mentions the three main issues that were considered following the large number of complaints by the public and members about grass cutting. And they were the structure of the contract, the service delivery, and the council supervision. The work done by the committee included taking into account the complaints about grass cutting and considering evidence from all the residents, towns and parishes and community groups, and also research with other councils about their experience with our contractors' performance. And this led to 12 recommendations which have been accepted by the officers. There is a follow-up in that we recommend that the executive member and the director of locality and customer services meet the senior management team at Trivoli, not actually a resort in Italy, early in 2019, and emphasise the council's expectation for service delivery in 2019 and submit a report to the February meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee, setting out the arrangements in place to ensure an effective grass cutting service in 2019. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much, Philip. And John, do you want to take the rest part?
Yes, as you say, the officers have agreed to the recommendations, and so as an executive member, I also agree to the recommendations. The meeting with Tivoli is planned for later on next week. My deputy and the service manager will be at the February Overview and Scrutiny meeting, and I suggest that you consider having it on the March Overview and Scrutiny meeting as well.
Okay, can you propose the two recommendations?
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, great. So it's been proposed by Councillor House. So everyone agrees? Anyone disagree? Good. Thank you very much. Agenda item 82, revenue monitoring report, page 49.
Exciting, yes. Thank you for the opportunity to update you all on the December monitoring. As you are aware, I have only been back in post since mid-December, but I'm pleased that a number of issues are being addressed, particularly the adult social care overspend that was reported at 1.5 million earlier on in the year is now down at 500,000. I understand there have been a few gremlins coming out of the woodwork in children's services, and some issues particularly around planning appeals that we've been referring to earlier, and extra costs in connection with homeschool transport, particularly in the special needs arena. So many of these are not unique to us, I think that's the one I would say. There are plenty of councils up and down the country who are in much worse financial challenges than we are. One of our officers was at a meeting recently, and when he came back he said, I was very quiet because most other people were in worse state than we were. So I think these are, the overspend is one I would not like to see, I don't like seeing at all. And we have significant plans both in adults and children's to do some work on the processes and the areas that are overspending and get them back under control. But I think members and the public here need to understand that our situation and our controls and our ability to the work we've done in the past on our budgets and our systems do pay dividends, and they will pay better dividends next year. So I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Councillor Paul? No? Okay, can I move to the vote then? Everyone agrees? Anyone disagree? Thank you very much. Angela, you again, capital monitoring?
This is a budget that members are aware has gone from a few tens of millions to hundreds of millions, mainly due to our SDR investments and the amounts of money that we're spending on roads and schools and other facilities, and that is reflected in the spending. There are often criticisms that the spending profile doesn't, the outturn of the spending profile is different from the budget, and I accept that, and I think officers have tried to profile the schemes, and the reason for that is that we budget for the full scheme. A scheme may take more than 12 months to deliver, and there are often delays. I think sometimes with some of the highway maintenance schemes, I think already referred to earlier, things happen in the network that mean we have to change things. In my ward we had a contractor went bust, and that delayed a whole load of things on the Basingstoke Road. So I think officers are keen, as are residents, for the work that we are planning to do to be done as quickly and efficiently as possible, but there are at times gremlins in the system and challenges that mean that some things take longer to deliver than we would like. But I'm happy again to take questions.
Okay, any questions for Councillor Paul? No? Can I move to the vote then? Everyone agrees? Thank you very much. Answering on again, shareholder report.
Reference was made to our companies in some of the questions, and they are grouped around provision of housing and property development, and have included redevelopment of some adult social care facilities, as well as new social housing facilities, and you can see the details set out in the beginning of the report. I think, as we've mentioned in some of the answers to the questions, that the need to continue the pipeline and to continue the rate of build, albeit the challenges, again, was alluded to by Gary, of where do we get the land from and how much of our own land do we use. I know when we started this, we had Eustace Crescent as a rebuild, and we had a number of garage areas where we've got garages on council houses in the HRA that were basically redundant, and we did do some work on those. I know Parry and his ward, who had some spare bit of ground that was being used by some nefarious types, and we've got some houses on there which meant they went somewhere else, and your local residents were much happier. So I think we do need to be innovative, and for other members who are listening here, if you know of bits of ground that could have some social housing on them, I think we would be happy to hear from you, or to hear what you, because we have this tremendous opportunity just to do it ourselves, And I think one of the lessons around the town centre has been when we didn't own the land, we were dependent on somebody else doing it for us, and then you get caught up in a whole load of other people's agendas. And we own the land, and we have the money, and we have the company that can do it. We are much more in the driving seat, and I think that is something that's important to develop further. The other piece here is Optimus. I have been particularly impressed with the new partnership with Windsor and Maidenhead. The increased size has reduced the turnover of staff, it has improved the staff satisfaction, it's improved the delivery and the quality of services to residents, and I'm particularly pleased with the quality of the senior management team that we have in that company. And I look forward to it growing in the future, particularly looking forward to finding another partner, a joint venture partner, or a franchise partner to take it to the next level. So I'm really keen to do that. I think we've got something unique and something that makes the LATCO experiment shows its real value. And I think, again, it plays its part in keeping our adult social care costs down, it plays its part in getting people out of the NHS hospitals when they need to be, and I think we punch above our weight in both those areas.
Okay, great, thank you very much. Any questions for Councillor Pollock?
Only an observation, Mr. Chair. Yes, I think that scheme in my ward was actually driven by the residents because of the antisocial behaviour that was rife in that area, and children taking drugs, needles found everywhere. And now there are 4 flats which are affordable housing, much needed by the residents, and they are being used. Thank you.
Okay, the proposal is on page 75, 1 and 2. Everyone satisfied? Everyone happy? Anyone disagree? John? Happy? Great, brilliant. Agenda item 85, page 85, delivering horse ride. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. This report is to establish a compulsory purchase order on Horse Ride Regeneration Project, and this will enable the voluntary or compulsory acquisition of all the necessary third-party land interests to bring forward comprehensive regeneration of the Horse Ride estate. And in principle, resolution to use compulsory purchase order will provide certainty with regards to the site assembly and the demonstration of the Council's commitment to rejuvenate the area.
Any questions, Councillor Pollock?
It's more of a statement than a question, but I think this is a fantastic project. I know, Simon, I've seen the area in your ward. I've been around in some detail, but I am aware of it, and I have always felt on the back of our SDLs and redevelopment work that the opportunity to redevelop this site and to turn it into something that's fit for the 21st century rather than something that perhaps we're in reality a bit ashamed of, I think is a fantastic opportunity and something that we all should be proud of. And again, where there are other sites which need this sort of attention, I think we need to be looking at that. I think we haven't built council houses for 50 years, apart from through WHL, and therefore the stock that we have is very, very old. And I think it's something that very seriously we will need to be looking at bringing into the 21st century, so that our poorer residents are not housed in very poor properties, which I think is wrong.
Okay, Councillor Weeks.
Thank you. I'm pleased that this is now come to this stage. I very much hope that the existence of the CPO will ensure that most things can be achieved voluntarily. But I am pleased to note that redevelopment has the clear support of the majority of residents and, of course, the support of TLEP, which is very important to it. I watched Gorse Ride being built, sadly over 50 years ago. The techniques used at the time enabled it to be built very quickly, but it was very clear that we knew at that stage, or I didn't know as a child, but that it had a life expectancy of these problems of about 30 years. Please note this was 50 years ago. So I'm very pleased that at long last it is going to be redeveloped. And I'm very pleased that we've been able to engage with the residents in my ward who live on the Gorse Ride estate, because it has a strong community spirit, and we're doing our utmost to ensure that that community spirit is maintained as the new development comes forward and those residents rightly have decent homes to live in. So I'm very supportive.
Great. And Councillor Jorgensen?
That's right, Simon said what I was going to say.
Right, okay, we're going very well then. Okay, so the 5 recommendations on page 85, everyone happy to accept those? Yeah. Anyone disagree? Thank you very much. So agenda item 86, page 95, Chief Finance Officer's reports. Councillor Pollock again.
Yes, this is my time of year, I'm afraid. This is a statutory report that is the responsibility of the Chief Finance Officer, so he has written it, I haven't, and it is his independent report to both councils and the public that is attached to our medium-term financial plan, and it gives him the opportunity to sound warnings and to set out in a broader context finances for the borough. The graphs are to indicate the usual piece that the government's very nasty to us, and as I said at council the other day, with our previous Labour government having decided to spend all the money, there have been a lot of needs to rebalance both the national books and ours, and the national balancing of the books has meant that we've had to tighten our belts rather more than perhaps we would like to have done. However, being true principles of local government, we have done that without any shroud waving. However, looking ahead, the usual challenges are the same as they usually are. We have issues in children's services, particularly around increasing numbers of children who require intervention and very specialist care, which is, as you would expect, very expensive. We have a growing older population, and therefore a growing older population who come to the council and say, I haven't got the money to pay the bills, and they look to us to fund their care home costs or their home care visit costs. And as we have done previously, we will continue to look at innovative ways of delivering these that mean we can deliver them more cheaply and to more people. And we have been successful doing it, and therefore I believe that we are well placed to continue that. We've got new leadership in adults and children's, and I think they are keen to rise to the challenge that we're faced with. As we've said before, we've done innovative things in the housing company at Optilis, and they contribute to our finances, as does the town, or as will the town centre when it is fully complete. I look forward to that playing its part. But I also have to warn, I don't expect the government to be nice to us financially in the future. There seems to be no evidence in the last 20 odd years I've been on this council that the government's likes to be nice to us. I think I can think of 1 year where we did well in the summer, otherwise we have never done very well, and I see no reason why that will not continue. So the big issues that we face are those unknown challenges, those left field things that happen that we don't know about beforehand, and we just have to react and do the best we can.
Okay. Any questions for Councillor Pollock? Okay, can we move to the recommendations then on page 95? Recommendations 1, 2 and 3. Everyone happy? Everyone disagree? Thank you very much. Councillor Pollock again, Treasury Management Report 125.
If anyone has problems getting to sleep, I recommend this report. It will provide a soporific effect.
Get a laugh with the executive.
It provides the soporific effect and will have you sound asleep before you have got to page 2, I think. But on the other hand, it is actually a very important report because it connects our borrowing and our investment with what are called the prudential guidance indicators, and basically that means that what we're doing is safe. There are often safe. Well, I'm saying, in my opinion, they're safe. Some highlights. I think we have effectively borrowed less in the first half of the year than we were planning, to the tune of £46 million. I'm pleased to see that the 95 million or near 100 million that we bought, that we had to pay the government to buy back what we already owned. I still find that a thoroughly bizarre situation where we owned the asset but we didn't seem to own the income. How we can get to that situation, only central government could create. Well, the EU could probably create something like that, but I'm pleased that the money that we're repaying those borrowings that we took out, and we have been able to make investments in the council housing stock on the back of it, which was the big issue that we had previously. Was we were paying so much money to the government that we physically couldn't get them up to a sufficient standard. We are also we've got the issues around the external borrowings at the bottom, page 135. We've got significant amounts of money that we have invested. This can be seen at the top of page 137. And because of SIL and 106 and New Homes Bonus, you can see on page 143, that's the wrong one, sorry, apologies, it's page 147. We have approximately 159 million in investments, which is significant and balances the borrowings on the other side effectively. So as I said, this report is very detailed and very technical, but I believe it shows that our financial position in respect of borrowings and investments is soundly managed and soundly based, and doesn't put us in a Northampton or anything like that.
Any questions for Councillor Pollock? I've just got one observation. On the housing revenue account, we did borrow, I think, 98 million. I was pleased to see that's down to 79.8. But also, whilst we're investing in the housing stock as well. So, Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Chairman. In view of recent opposition comments about the level of our borrowing, do you have any concerns yourself?
No, I don't. As I've said, the HRA, I've had a figure of 85 million, but that is effectively invested in assets that if we were to sell them is probably worth twice that, I would have thought, at least. The town centre will be valued at least double what the possible borrowings might be, so more than double in that. The investment portfolio is worth more than we have invested it in, and the carrying costs are lower than the rental income. So again, and the rental income is based on sound long-term tenants, so we haven't got issues of voids and vacancies. And the majority of our debt is related to forward funding infrastructure, which is what we promised our residents that we would do when we undertook or accepted the developments in the SQLs. And we know that we will get either 106 or SIL. If the housing market means that completions are delayed, we will simply get it a bit later, but we will get it. So whether we've funded Arborfield School at 40 odd million early, it may take longer for that to come in, but it'll come in. So No, I think I'm comfortable that the balance is sound and safe.
Thank you.
That's just generated a question with me. With Sill and with 106, we get interest on that if they pay it late, don't we?
Not on 106.
On Sill?
On Sill we do, and I think we're charging them 10% interest.
10%?
I believe so.
That's a good level.
Okay, great.
May I just add a question? And if they, and sometimes they come to us because they've got cash flow issues, and we say, yes, you can delay, but you pay us interest.
Okay, so 4 recommendations on page 125. Everyone happy with those? Can I show hands? Anyone disagree? Thank you very much. Temporary closure of Renneman Footpath. John.
Yes, this is an annual event, ironically I'm presenting, and it's the same as last year and should not be controversial. I recommend it.
Any questions for John? It's straightforward. Everyone satisfied? Show of hands. Thank you very much. And now, Councillor Bath, agenda item 89, Winchie Close Self-Build Project.
Thank you, Chair. This is an excellent story where the community gets involved in designing and building their own self-build projects. And Winchie Close is one of them, and it's first. And the land is owned by Wokingham Council at the moment, and that's where it will be built. We're planning to build 21 plots, so build on 21 plots, 8 of which will be sold on the open market. There will be a design code for the whole site, and this will be a great site, a great story for people to get involved, community to get involved, build their own projects.
Okay, any questions for Councillor Bell? Councillor Weeks?
Yes, thank you. I think it's important that we're really clear as to who the self-build is aimed at. I certainly know a number of people who are interested in self-build. They're typically living in a reasonable sized house. They may be possibly even approaching retirement age, and they want to do a sort of Kevin McLeod style, build their own dream home. Can you please give me an assurance that what we're planning at Winchie Close is to enable, presumably generally, younger people to get on the housing ladder with their first home, rather than to provide plots for people who might be wanting to build somewhat larger houses. This is clearly very important for me, that it is for people who are wanting to get in on the act, get in onto the housing ladder, rather than those who are already, to be blunt, comfortably already on it.
Yes, I can categorically give you that assurance. I think the scheme is designed really primarily for people to get onto the housing ladder rather than designed for people to build their own dream home. So it is very much designed to get people to get onto the housing ladder. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Councillor Bell? Okay, so the recommendations, 5 of them on page 169. Can we get a show of hands here? We're happy to accept those. Anyone disagree? Thank you very much. Councillor Munro, call for council sites?
Yes, topical. Sorry, Councillor Cowan's not here still to see the fruit of some of the things that he was asking about. It's straightforward. I draw your attention really to page 183, which shows a difference that this may change as we go along, but really we're adding the piecemeal finish into the process that we've already got added to the ones in the second block. Very straightforward.
Okay, any questions for Councillor Munro? Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Chair. I understand that the Sea community have had several meetings with the council officers to meet their need of building a Sea temple and looking for a suitable plot to buy from the council. And the council have identified several plots of land, but one of them are suitable and is a Winchie allotment, so despite the fact there's going to be a relief road through it. What are your thoughts on these discussions taking place, and will this fit nicely into your plan?
Thank you, Barry, for your question. Yes, I am aware of that, and as you know, I've attended some of those meetings myself. I think the council's duty really is to get the best value return for that land, and obviously the community use is something that we're really interested in helping them too. I think it's just about going through the process of actually evaluating all the options open to us. That's not to say that we're not going to do anything, just to say that we're going to go through that process.
Okay, any other questions for Councillor Monroe? Okay, so 2 recommendations on page 177. Can I get a show of hands and happy to accept? All agreed, thank you very much. Agenda item 91, business rate retail discounts. Councillor.
Thank you. This is localisation of a non-domestic rate discount scheme. I think it was announced in the budget. There has been a lot of comment because of the number of retail units going to liquidation, and the Chancellor used this scheme to try and help out. Not sure it's actually targeted right at the people who were going out of business, but that's another matter. And we have localised the scheme for our needs and the needs of our smaller retailers.
Councillor Monroe, you've got a question?
Yeah, just Anthony, who exactly will benefit then?
It's mainly aimed at properties with a rateable value of less than £51,000. And it is also aimed at shops, restaurants, cafes, drinking establishments. And so that can include florists, bakers, butchers, grocers, greengrocers, jewellers, stationers, off licences, chemists, newsagents, hardware stores and supermarkets, etc. Charity shops, opticians, post offices, etc., etc., etc. And hair and beauty services, I believe. So a lot of small retail units that are well used by the public, well valued by the public, but perhaps don't have a huge turnover, and as such have the opportunity to obtain some relief in the difficult climate that we find ourselves in, or they find themselves in today. So I think it's a good news piece for our hard-working independent retailers. I think it will give some relief on the town, I think, and elsewhere. Commend it to the executive.
Great. Any other questions, Councillor Pollock? So can we move to the recommendation on page 189? Everyone happy? Everyone good? John happy? Good. Thank you. Councillor Bath, agenda item 92, provision of special educational needs. Oh, sorry.
Excuse me, may I just be allowed to say something following my question earlier on? I would just like to point out on page 223, 1B says provision of classrooms on the existing sports and parking area, relocating these into the site of urban landscape value. And on page 225 it says only the option 1C variant ensures no development at all on the designated SULD. So I think that proves, well, either this report is mistaken in what it's trying to say, or I am stupid and I read it incorrectly. But it seems to me that it is quite clearly saying that there will be building of a car park, etc., on the SULD.
Okay. If I can ask Councillor Eunice to take that up with Children's Services, just to get exact clarification, and then we'll write to you, and if we have made a mistake, then we'll apologise for that, but we'll get the exact answer to make sure we don't go round the houses on this expression. Okay, Councillor Eunice.
Thank you very much. Item 92 is a provision for the special education needs and disabilities, especially for the expansion of Addington School. This is a recommendation. A number of options have been looked at by the officers, and one of the options is to expand the Addington School. And I think just bear in mind for everybody's information, as we know, Addington School has been rated as outstanding school, accelerating the work which the head teacher and the staff have done and consistently is getting very good rating. At the moment, what's happening is at least 40% of our children are being educated outside the borough. That amounts to 133 children. And just that obviously causes a lot of disruption for the children. Obviously, there's a long journey for them. They have to go away. And also less quality time for the family as well. And also it puts a lot of pressure on our budget, especially when we're the lowest funded council in the country. Just to give you some figures, Chair. At Addington, we're to cost about £18,000 to support a child currently. But if they were to go outside, it could be up to 65. And the discrepancy, 67, and about the variance of 42k. And that's a huge variance in the cost. So intention is to bring our children wherever we can within the borough, educate them within the borough. So and the benefit would be obviously the children themselves have a better quality of life for the family, and also it will save taxpayers money in the long run. So I recommend the report to the executive.
Any questions, Councillor News? Councillor Paul?
Can you clarify, on page 216, there is a red line that item 6.6 underneath it would imply that that is the site of the Addington School. Is that correct? Because if it is, then that might be the answer to Jenny's question. Because it would include what a passerby might consider to be part of this special landscape urban value, but actually is in the Addington School curtilage.
Correct. It is within the boundaries of the Addington School, and there's no. Yes, that is correct. So it's not going to change from that perspective. Somebody coming and actually using the space, it's not going to be impacted.
Could I ask one other question on money? It's a money night tonight. You've raised this issue of this discrepancy between what we do in-house and what we have to pay when we go elsewhere. The piece that concerns me is that when people come to us from somewhere else, we aren't getting the £75,000 that they would have to pay in the independent sector, and in fact my impression is we're getting even less than the standard cost. I think this is very, very wrong, and the fact that we're spending significant amounts of our capital money expanding a very good school, and then we're having to sell surplus places to other authorities at a discount, I think is awful. And I'm really quite cross about it, because I think, we're investing money and other people are piggybacking off the back of it.
That's why we need to do this.
Which I would urge you to speak to those who can change this situation, because it's fine if we invest and it helps us, but when we invest and actually we get stuffed for it, not right.
If you go to page 217, option 1B, read that sentence out. It says, build inside the existing Addington School site, placing new buildings on the existing car park and all roads, which are outside the SLUV, relocating these from part of the school site within the SLUV. So there is.
I think there's some ambiguity there. So I think we need to go away, because it does actually say 1A and 1B, and then further down that we're accepting 1B.
And 1B, I've just read out.
Yeah, so that's the clarification we need to make. But to answer Councillor Pollock's comment about out of area children using this, we want to use it for the benefit of Woking's children, and that's going to be the aim.
Can I just be clear also that whether the description that Jenny's given, which seems to be right in the paper, to be honest, is correct or not, this will also go to planning. So there will be every opportunity for people to influence the building through the planning process as well.
Because I think the text doesn't agree with the photograph. So
None of the photographs don't agree with each other.
no, so that's why I think we need some clarification on that. Yeah, so we'll get some clarification and we'll come back to you. Okay. No, we'll take the recommendation as it is. So recommendation as it is on page 207. Well, then we'll correct it afterwards if we need to correct it. But we'll take the recommendation as it is.
Subject to correction.
Okay, yeah. So we'll add on 1B subject to any clarification and correction. Yes. Okay, everyone content?
Yeah.
Happy? Thank you very much. And the last part of the executive this evening is agenda item 93. Now there are some pink pages on part 2, so if we do need to go into detailed financial information that is restricted, then we'll have to exclude the press and the public. Hopefully we won't have to do that. Councillor Lewis?
I won't include the financial figures, but as you know, the facility, some call as some abbreviated SPEC, has been in existence, set up by some of our 3 schools in 1970. It's been going on and provided very good facilities as outdoor facilities. Particularly, it's run by trust, which is financially independent. There is no direct involvement from the Woking Borough point of view, but we have 3 members of staff actually who work at the centre and we contribute. So this has been going on for some time now. There has been sort of a discussion that we are, as employers, we still have liability on those, and obviously if anything goes wrong in terms of negligence, there's a liability on us, or any work-related injury could happen, or as the worst thing is death. So we'll still be liable for that, and also the pensions as well. So the discussion is going on whether we can actually limit our liability, and as a result, documentation is to basically cease our, give them a notice to actually cease providing the services which we do as Woking Borough Council. Yes, there goes into detail the report in terms of the TUPE may be an option to go for, so we transfer the staff without actually having negative impact on their terms and conditions. So that discussion obviously will take place, but at the moment, obviously you have to give them official notice, and the date which is being recommended is at 30th of June, so it gives us enough time. But this is not coming on them as a surprise. A lot of discussion has been going on, and they've shown some concerns, and the concerns are being addressed as well. And obviously there's some financial implications, which I probably don't want to go into, but actually the one thing is that as Woking Borough Council, we do want the services to continue. We're providing an excellent facility. We want to support them as much as we can. At the same time, we want to limit our liability as well as a borough. So I recommend the report.
Okay, any questions for Councillor Eunice?
If there are people who've worked for us for a long period of time and their situation changes and then there are problems, do we not have some sort of duty, I know not technically, but do we not have some sort of moral duty to ensure that they're not left high and dry?
Well, that's what you just said.
Yeah, that's really the detail. It is in the detail report, and where the provisions will be there, so they're not left out.
That's fine. That was my only.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so does anyone need to discuss any sort of financial data, or can we go straight to the votes? Everyone happy? Yeah. Agrees? Yeah. Great, thank you very much. That's unanimous, and that's the conclusion of tonight's executive. Thank you very much.